switched over to basically a neural anatomy approach to recognizing how the brain functions in how we react, respond, and how that is tied our cognitive, not just our cognitive, abilities to think with prowess, but our social abilities to interact with humanity, and how that's a process of neural networks established in our limbic mind that either take on a more self-obsessed kind of phenomena, or more of a benevolent phenomena. And a lot of that is related to what parts of the neural anatomy in our limbic brain that is being utilized the most. So it's not necessary to understand the different areas of the amygdala, the habenula, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the pineal gland, and things like that. But recognizing that the way the neural anatomies are established inside the limbic brain are essential for how we act and behave. So we initially started talking about the essential kind of like ingredients necessary for neural anatomy to be able to establish it. So basically neuropeptides, somewhat on brain waves, what type of brain waves, be it a theta wave or a delta wave, are more in tune to the brain recording information, where a beta wave is more about the brain, a play button, and when you're in a beta wave, this high energy frequency, the brain is just on play mode, and it's just acting out what's been recorded. And so the theta and the delta wave are essential in establishing the ability to record, especially record new information, because when we're in a child, our brain is naturally in an alpha wave. An alpha wave is highlighted by recording information. So a lot of the things that we witness as a child, we witness how our parents behave, act, how their anger, their aggression, their compassion, their ability to find benevolence, how they feel empathy, and all these things are related to that alpha wave that the brain's in as a child. And it's recording this information in the form of neural pathways that are basically targeting specific areas of the limbic mind. So the challenge of the hard work a lot of times is, as an adult, trying to basically figure out how to kind of clean up some of that neural anatomy that's not really working too well as an adult. We kind of look at it and say, man, there's ways that I can improve and better myself, and we never get there. It's not like we got 100% improved, but there's a lot of times, there's a lot of headway that we can make, for really dysfunctional ways that we act, behave, myself included. And a lot of times I'm looking at myself going, why did I do that? How come I lost my temper? How come I, didn't really, think about the other person before I spoke quickly, or, let it insult me and things like that, So, we all are I say victim to that. Victim meaning not in the sense that it's anybody else's fault, but victim to our inner brain's programming. So, that victimhood thing is more not about blaming other people, but looking at ourselves and how our inner brain is sculpted in ways that allow us to behave and act in ways that we don't necessarily feel proud of, and the way that a lot of people nowadays are getting around that feeling of taking a self-look and examining their behavior is by having arrogance, having being contemptuous and blaming and doing all these other things on people outside them. So all the problems that they face in life are not their fault, it's everybody else's, and that doesn't do anything to basically correct the normal pathways that are causing the problem. So talked a little bit, I talked about neural peptides, we talked about, serotonin, dopamine. I didn't really mention too much about dopamine, because serotonin is the foundation. So if you have serotonin release, dopamine can be produced from that. And what that kind of, all that hocus pocus means is that these are kind of all elements necessary, a lot like building muscle. If you want to build muscle, you need to have amino acids. Not just amino acids, you need to have specific amino acids to build the muscles. So and the same thing holds true for the brain. So being willing to spend time in nature, to recognize that where the sun rises and the sun sets, a lot of times it is beneficial for your brain, for your pineal gland, especially to release serotonin, and then the body can release dopamine. And both of those are neuropeptides, serotonin and dopamine, and they have both. They both are neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. And I spoke about neurotransmitters in the last episode. Neurotransmitters are just basically a really efficient way for the neurons to communicate to one. It's like a high-performance car that's chiseled to run at top speeds and perform at great speeds and great talent. That's how our brain works really well when we have these neuropeptides that enhance neurotransmitters. And then neural pathways are basically the ability for these nerves to form clusters that actually create a pathway inside the brain. So the neural pathway is being established inside the limbic mind, and it's going through different areas, specific anatomy of the limbic mind that's essential for us to behave and act in certain ways. So when we're not behaving and acting in a lot of ways, we want to figure out how to correct that, and that's the hard work, man. So it's not a one-time thing either. Developing neural pathways is just a repetitive process that we have to go over many times in order to reinforce that initial, it's kind of a tenuous, fragile neural pathway that's first started. And as we work harder and harder on that, we're going to rebuild that and make that stronger and stronger. And like I said, man, we never get perfect at it, but just getting progress, not perfection, is just a huge accomplishment. You know what I'm saying? It means that the work and the discipline and the belief in making yourself a better person actually pays off in small ways that maybe others don't recognize, but we recognize. And that gives us a reason to try harder and work more focused and deliberately at trying to do the hard work. And this is the hard work. It's not some egotistical, I'm such a brewer of the hard work, blah, blah. It's about, man, no, I'm disciplining myself to practice certain things, to get up at certain times of the day, to spend some time, reflecting on my life at specific times, and to cohese that with, the ability to produce neural peptides that are going to help us to build those neural pathways. We talked a little bit in the last episode about exercise. Now, exercise is really essential specific to two neuropeptides, dopamine and acetylcholine, and both of those are neurotransmitters and neuromodulators, right? So we're thinking better, and we're also establishing neural pathways. So it's already proven that people who are going through academia processes, and doctorates, and all those types of things, exercise is really essential to help them actually learn better, faster, quicker, and create this kind of neural network in their brain that's essential. So the same thing holds true for us, man. So church, and it's going to touch on. I try to use art to make it more interesting and palpable, but you're going to see, hopefully, how. What church is actually doing. At church or whatever type of, on temple, however you go to worship, right? All religions are doing the same thing, on a neural scale. So, realizing that as you go ahead and you're studying the Word, the Gospel, the Quran, whatever it is that you're thinking of, you're trying to focus on. As you do that, you're building neural pathways, and hopefully neural pathways that are aligned with benevolence. And the same way, people can go to church and learn how to hate. So it's really easy to kind of twist that. So that's basically, free will. And how am I focusing my free will when I'm in church? Am I focused on really whatever the scriptures, the sermon is, or what the priest or the Buddha mind is trying to convey, and then too, some people who are, spilling the word of God, I have a lot of hate and animosity in them. So, is that the type of person that you want to listen to, teaching you how to use your mind better, the one that's creating neural pathways in your brain that are specifically targeting the amygdala and the habenula that are really kind of basically, anger, defense, anxiety, war mentality, there's essential parts of that anatomy too. So you don't want to be a total pacifist, It's recognizing how to put these things together in a cohesive way that enable us to adapt to life in a very benevolent way. Anyway, I hope you get a chance to check it out. I hope you kind of look below the surface and see what it's really trying to point at, in not only an academic way, but an artistic way, an ability to say, man, I get what they're trying to say. I see what they're trying to tell me. Anyway, man, hope you have a great week. Hope your Easter, if you practice, uh, 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 Christianity, that it was very rewarding for you. Or whatever religion you do practice. Have a good day.